The debate polling. Well, it's been pretty interesting. Poll finds that Biden damaged by the debate, with Harris and Clinton best positioned to win. I mean, look, there's no chance that Hillary Clinton is going to be the nominee. Zero chance. And I will stand by that one. I have to. Hillary Clinton is despised by the Democrats. They hate her as much as you hate her. Well, maybe not as much, but close, because what they see her as is a person who lost to Donald Trump. That's what they see her as. They loved her until that moment. They couldn't believe she lost, and now they despise her. I don't think there's any chance she's the nominee. There's certainly much more chance that Joe Biden is the nominee than Hillary Clinton. And I think there's much higher probability that, if Biden were to step out, I think it's Kamala Harris 90%. It's possible they could try one of these concoctions of plans for this new primary and make up all these rules on the fly. It's not impossible. Democrats are Democrats. They break rules all the time. But to skip over Kamala Harris, it better be for a good reason. Probably needs to be for someone like Michelle Obama, which they don't actually have. What the polls show 11 days after the Biden-Trump debate, some of the stuff is pretty interesting. But what I would say is if you happen to be Joe Biden, I think this is all pretty encouraging, frankly. All these polls are post-debate now, and the average was before the debate, Trump by 1, and now it's by 2. Okay, it moved by a point. You're really going to freak out over that? CNN's national poll before the debate, Trump by 6. After the debate, also by 6. New York Times before the debate, Trump by 6 among registered voters, and 4 points among likely voters. After the debate, it was 8 points among registered voters and 6 points among likely voters. So, moved to a couple of points. That's kind of what we've seen overall as we've gone. Now, if you kind of go into really high quality polling, you're seeing some really worrisome signs for Democrats. Nate Cohn highlighted this. He's one of the data guys at the New York Times. He says, perhaps the most important poll you've never heard of came out today, the Pew NPRS study. This is a large mail survey with financial incentives and a 30% response rate. Basically, they really want you to respond to this. They're going to pay you to actually go through and do the work. The headline, the NPRS found leaned party identification at Republicans +1. That's not a massive margin. It's the first time, though, that the NPRS gives the GOP a party ID edge. Last year, it was Democrats +2. Significant in its own right, given the quality of the survey, and it hits other polls. It kind of gives you a baseline as to what the electorate might look like. That's why they use this poll, and it's such a significant one. By subgroup, the headline is age. The NPRS found that the GOP was ahead on leaned party ID among 18 to 29-year-olds, even though the sample was Biden +20 on 2020 recall vote. To translate that for you, one of the questions they ask in a lot of these polls is, all right, just generically, do you want Republicans or Democrats to win? And that generic vibe will give you kind of a sense of where the electorate is. If it's Democrats +7, it seems like it's a big Democratic leaning year. Republicans +3, it's a big Republican leaning year. Usually they lean slightly Democrat. What this is saying is if you ask people, hey, are you Republican or Democrat? A bunch of people are going to say Republican, a bunch are going to say Democrat. And then others are going to say, well, I might be independent, but I lean Republican, lean Democrat. If you look at the leaners, what you're seeing among young voters, 18 to 29, is a Republican +20 number. That's bonkers. Should not happen, never happens, never supposed to happen. That's not supposed to be a thing. If that holds up, the Democrats are in deep, deep trouble all over the ballot. That is a terrible, terrible number for Democrats. The sample size is pretty large, about 500. The race also had, racially, there were some shifts as well. The Democratic share of major party-leaning non-white voters kept edging downward from 68 to 65. So again, not a massive vote, but non-white voters moving 3 points toward Republicans. This is a good thing for Republicans if you're looking at that from the conservative perspective. Now, let me give you just a quick download of where the polls look like they are right now in summary, and then I want to get to the biggest Joe Biden story of the day, because we have not talked about that yet, and it is massively important. I looked through all the election models, the main ones that I could find. In addition, some of the polling averages. Let me just give you a quick rundown of where we are. The New York Times polling average has Trump up by 3. Real Clear Politics average has Trump also up by 3. If you're Joe Biden, a 3-point lead is not a 7 or 8-point lead. As I said before, when the debate thing happened, if Biden can get through the first couple of weeks And then if the polls don't completely turn against him, if it doesn't show a lot of polls like that New York Times survey that showed him down by 8 among registered voters, if you're just getting the 3-point, the 2-point, the 1-point leads, he could totally survive that. It's if it gets to 8 or 9 where it's really going to be a problem, or his approval rating starts dropping below 30. Right now, it's holding around 36, 37. That's terrible, but also basically where he was before the debate. If the debate doesn't show any major difference, why would you switch? Especially if he doesn't want to switch. So the polling averages between those two groups, again, New York Times, Trump +3, Real Clear Politics, Trump +3. When you look through the forecasts, okay, these are groups that are trying to look at all the polls, all the fundamentals, and trying to give you a percentage odds that one candidate can win. Donald Trump's worst result here is by 538, the website formerly run by Nate Silver. No longer. He runs now his own service. We'll get to that in a second. But 538 has Trump at 51% chance to win. That's the worst. Next worst is DDHQ, which has Trump at 60% to win. Then Nate Silver has Trump at 69% chance to win. And The Economist has a model as well. They have him actually most optimistic for Trump at 74% chance to win. The bottom line is Trump is a massive favorite, and all the polling that is included in these models and these averages is now post-debate. So we kind of have a sense of where this settles. Will this continue to happen? Will this coverage continue to batter Joe Biden? Well, that's an important question, which leads us to the most important Joe Biden story of the day. Because we have had an interesting couple of weeks. Starting on June 27th, check the New York Times, you would see story after story after story after story, giving you, hey, here's Joe Biden and why he did so badly. Look how badly Joe Biden did in this interview. Look how badly he did in this appearance. Hey, another Democrat just came out and said that they don't want Joe Biden to run. Hey, this unnamed donor just came out and said they don't want Joe Biden to run. Hey, here's how Kamala Harris could be put in if they really wanted to. Hey, here's how the election rules will show you how we can switch this guy out. Here's an op-ed from the editorial board telling us that he should drop out over and over and over again. Nonstop barrage. There have been brief interruptions in the middle of the day, like, the Supreme Court rulings come down. There have been brief interruptions in the day. But the main story, basically every single morning and almost all the time through the day since June 27th, has been basically some version of get the hell out of here, Joe Biden. From the New York Times. I kid you not, this is really what they've been doing. Today, however, I woke up and I saw the most important Joe Biden story of the day, and here it is. U.S. officials say Russia is unlikely to take much more Ukrainian territory. You might say, why is that the most important Joe Biden story of the day? It's a good question. But the answer to that is, it's not about him. The top story at the New York Times today, for the first time since the debate, was not about Joe Biden, was not about how bad he is, was not about how old he is, was not about how infirmed he was. It's not about how he should get out, or who's calling for him to get out, or how they can push him out, or what will happen if he does get pushed out. It was about Russia. Now look, you can write a top story about Russia every single day if you want to focus on the minutiae of the Russia-Ukraine war. There's obviously big things going on there every single day. But the fact is, today, that has been interrupted. And in fact, almost all day today, it has been something Russia or Ukraine related. Does this mark the turning point where the media has thrown every arrow they can against Joe Biden and he has survived them and pushed back this wave of attackers? Can he actually pull this thing off and survive? It wouldn't shock me at any point that he drops out. I think right now he's the favorite to stay in. That does not include calculating another major catastrophe in some speech. I mean, it could change things in an instant, but where he is right now, he's starting to get public statements of support from major officials. He's starting to get the things he needs to get done. And while it took a while, it seems like he's finally turning the tides to remain as the nominee. I'll be honest with you, I want him to remain the nominee because he's absolutely terrible. And while the other candidates don't look that good for the Democrats, they're all unknowns. We don't know how it will play out. This one we kind of do, right? We know Joe Biden's going to be old. He's going to be terrible. He's going to make a lot of mistakes. We know what he's going to be. He should be, by any Republican, very, very beatable. You can't lose to Joe Biden in this spot, in his condition. You can't. It just can't happen. You got to make sure you pull that off. You got to figure it out.